Hello friends, welcome back to the new section of the lecture on Udemy. I hope this is the most awaited lecture in this series because we are going to use the Raspberry Pi, the most famous prototyping platform since last couple of years. So friends, let's start to explore Raspberry Pi from this lecture onwards. Let us check some of the facts about the Raspberry Pi. It is a low-cost credit card size computer. Remember my word, it is a computer, it is not a developing board. So think that what are the feature it has because of the computer word. It is open source hardware. The founder of Raspberry Pi is Ibn Upton, is known as the father of Raspberry Pi. And for the reference, it was introduced on 29th February 2012. Few more facts about the Raspberry Pi which makes it most famous among the developers. That is the high computing in small size and low cost. It is a replacement of regular desktop computer. Anyone can use this Raspberry Pi as a replacement of desktop computer. It supports HDMI. It has HDMI ports for quality video output. For Raspberry Pi 4, it supports 4K video output. It has Ethernet, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and everything is available which is required for a normal development board. Most famous among the engineers and hobbyists to make prototype due to 40 GPIO pins. It has 40 GPIO pins. This is a unique feature of such kind of board. As Raspberry Pi is having a lot of boards in its family, but I have listed only two boards. One is Raspberry Pi 3B Plus and Raspberry Pi 4. As Raspberry Pi 3B Plus is most commonly used since last 2 years among the prototype and the developers. And the Raspberry Pi 4 was recently launched before some months, and that is the reason I have kept both the boards. Just for your information, by taking the Raspberry Pi into your hand, you cannot easily differentiate the Pi 3B Plus and Pi 4. But a very special thing between the Pi 3 and Pi 4 is the HDMI ports. So by looking at the HDMI ports, you can easily bifurcate between Pi 3 and Pi 4. Dear friends, I have considered Raspberry Pi 4 as a reference board over here because it is the latest board available in the market. Though there are a number of other boards available in the market and widely used for the prototyping purpose, but as this is the latest board, I am going with the Raspberry Pi 4. Let us understand some features which makes Raspberry Pi 4 a unique development board among all other Raspberry Pi 4 family members. The first one is its processor. It is having BCM2711 processor from Broadcom, which works at 1.5 GHz speeds, and it is 64-bit processor. Another one, the most important part is Raspberry Pi 4 having 3 variant, that is 1 GB, 2 GB and 4 GB RAM. It has gigabit Ethernet, it has 2.4 GHz and 5.0 GHz Wi-Fi features, it has a Bluetooth, it has 4 USB port, USB 3.0 and USB 2.0 ports are available, 40 pins GPIO header which is fully compatible with your backward boards. It has 2 micro HDMI ports, it has 2-lane MIPI DSI display ports, 4-port stereo audio and composite video port. It supports number of encoders like H.265, H.264, OpenGL, etc. etc. It also supports 5V DC USB-C type connector. Power over Ethernet is also available with this, but for that we required a separate PoE hat. And the operating temperature is between 0 to 50 degrees Celsius. So friends, check the such kind of technical specification with any other board which are not available, and that is the reason Raspberry Pi 4 is most common and most famous among the developers. So here it is in Raspberry Pi 4. You can see the different component connected on the board, and I think you can easily identify the HDMI port and USB port, Ethernet port, etc. etc. As we have seen that Raspberry Pi is a kind of replacement for your desktop. It supports a lot of operating system. Here we are having 10 plus different operating system for Raspberry Pi. Depending on your need, you can easily download it from the website. Website is also mentioned in the references as well as mentioned on this screen. It has one special operating system which is known as the NOOBS. NOOBS. It is known as the new out-of-box software. It gives you the selection of the operating system to install into your particular Raspberry Pi board. It is very easy to download the operating system from the website. As well, it is quite easy to install the operating system into the Raspberry Pi boards, which we will see into the next lecture. I hope you understand whatever we have discussed in this section and you remember the specifications and all related to Raspberry Pi. In the next lecture, we are going to see how to install the Raspberry Pi OS into the card and how to start working with the Raspberry Pi as a desktop computer. Here you can see the references for your GPIO pins. Remember friend, it is most common for all the Raspberry Pi boards which are having at least 40 GPIO pins. Remember, 40 GPIO pins.